What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Marriage and Medicine. This week's video, we'll be talking about marriage. We want to talk about a couple things that we feel are non-negotiables when it comes to having a successful marriage altogether.
So obviously we haven't been married that long, but I feel like we have a good understanding being, 6 years in now? We have a good understanding of like what's been working and what doesn't really work. So the first one is communication. I feel like it's important when you're in a relationship, but especially when you're married, like you have to communicate. When something is bothering you, you have to talk about it, you have to fix it and resolve it. Like it doesn't do any good for either person just to have something bottled up and then you just bottle it up over and over and over and it explodes. So that's something I definitely have to work on because I don't, well, TJ does a better job like when we have a disagreement or a heated discussion that he will try to talk it out and try to fix it, and I don't do that.
Shut down.
I don't do that good. I tend to be quiet and get silent, and I don't want to talk. I don't want to be bothered. Whatever. Eventually I do at some point talk about it, but I have a bad habit of just kind of internalizing what happened and just not wanting to talk about it and not wanting to be bothered at all. So that's something I definitely have to get better at doing. But I would say that is a big thing that couples, they have to have some kind of way to communicate with each other.
Yeah, and you also have to work on listening. As Jasmine will tell you, I'm not that great sometimes. I usually tend to forget a lot that she says. At
all the time.
No, just sometimes.
You always forget.
So this is what happens. She starts talking about things, and then she'll like slip in something that's important that I probably should remember. But sometimes I'm kind of toned down.
No, I can even like tell you something that's important. Like, hey, on Friday we have this, and you're like, oh, okay. Thursday comes, and he's like, what was it again? That's what we have on Friday. It's
things happen, things slip through, but all together, we're all kind of work in progress. But working on just making sure that you're listening. That's kind of the first key to communication. The best way to be able to communicate is to first hear what your partner's saying, and also understand. Don't be so quick to talk in some situations. Sometimes you need to just kind of get a better understanding of what your partner is going through, their side of the situation, so that you can better kind of internalize and know how to appropriately assess certain situations.
Yeah, it's like the listen to understand, not listen to respond.
Right.
Like people nowadays in arguments listen to respond and come back and like, well, you did this, but you're not listening to understand how I truly feel in the situation.
Right.
So the second one is finances, because I think finances is like the number one reason why people get divorced is because they can't get on the same page. Like you have someone that loves to spend money and then someone that doesn't, and then they can't figure out some kind of a compromise or a agreement or whatever to deal with their finances, even if they have separate accounts or a joint account.
Which I would say, make sure you have joint accounts if you're married.
At least one.
You gotta have a joint account. You have to know what each other's doing. That's the best way to kind of hold each other accountable for certain things. But
yeah, we have one joint, and then we also have separate. But I just think finances especially is like one thing that people don't think is that important, because they just look at it as, well, as long as like all our bills are paid, it doesn't matter. But when you have two people coming together that's supposed to be one and acting as one unit in a family, you have to have an agreement on how you're spending your money and where you're putting it at. So
yeah, also another thing going along that, the importance of a joint account also is you may not both make the same amount of money. If one person's making
you may not make any money.
That too. If one person's making an exorbitant amount of money and one person's kind of living paycheck to paycheck or whatever from their standpoint, if you're not having a joint account, then it's going to make it difficult for you guys to be able to kind of be on the same page on finances in general, because one just has such a surplus. And again, once you become married, you become one. Everything needs to join together so that you guys can work to function in order to improve your future altogether.
Yep, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
No, but I feel like also when you join your finances together, in a sense, you can kind of help each other. Like if one person doesn't really understand, it's a good way to help each other out. Like you can come to a better understanding. Like this is why we have to save, or this is why we have to build an emergency fund, or this is how investing works, or whatever. Like once you're getting on the same page, you're able to kind of help balance each other out. If one is a little weaker when it comes to finances, then the other one can kind of help build them up. And it's almost like you kind of help teach them, in a sense, something that they may not have already known. And thankfully for us, we were kind of mostly already on the same page when it came to finances. I would say I'm definitely more the like spender person.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And TJ is more of the save person, but we have the same agreement of like, you have to make sure all your bills and things are taken care of first, and then whatever's left, like, okay, that's what we can figure out what we want to use it for.
Right. And it's okay to have a spender in your life. Because for somebody like me, I would just not buy much of anything. I would just be sitting here with a bunch of money down the road with just minimal things, essentially. So
yeah, it like balances each other out. Like you don't want to just always spend all your money and then you never have a savings, but you don't always want to save everything and then you never spend money either. Like you need both people, I feel, in a relationship to kind of keep the other in check. Yeah. The third one is intimacy. So doesn't necessarily, like people hear that word and they automatically think like physical stuff. Like intimacy doesn't just have to be physical. It can be emotional. It can be like just being vulnerable with your partner and sharing things about yourself that maybe they didn't know before.
Right, but don't get it twisted. That physical part is important for sure.
That's coming later.
But definitely just making sure that you continue to just enjoy your spouse. Do things that are special to them. Be romantic. Try to be thoughtful about different things. And again, when it comes to intimacy, like Jasmine was saying, I mean, there's just different forms of it. You just want to be kind of in tune with what your partner needs and kind of understand that. We'll talk about that a little bit later also.
Yes, I think it's just more about being open to what the other person needs and what you need and be willing to do those things.
Right.
The fourth one is trust, because I feel like if you don't have trust in a marriage, that like your marriage can't last. And I heard a good quote, I think it was from Pastor Todd, I can't remember his last name.
I know
Transformation Church. I can't remember his last name for some reason, but Mike Todd.
Mike, there it is.
That was his name.
His last name is Todd. That's
yeah. He said something like, basically when you break someone's trust is lost in buckets, but it's gained back like in drops. So like once you've broken the trust in a relationship, but especially in a marriage, like you've taken a huge chunk out of your marriage, and then trying to rebuild it, it's not that it's not possible, but it's gonna come back a lot slower than what it was before. And so I feel like it's a good, I don't know what the word is, like you just want to make sure you don't break that trust to begin with, if at all possible, because it does make your partner feel less trusting of you, for lack of better words.
To go along with that, don't give any reason to have your partner feel like they don't trust you. If you have your phone out or something and they're like, oh, what you looking at? Show them what you're looking at. I mean, don't sit here and like keep locks and pads on your phone so that nobody can get into it. Let your wife have your number or your code, those different kind of things. I mean, it's all about transparency. I think the best way to gain trust and to continue to have trust is to be transparent in a relationship altogether. Because without it, there's always questions that keep coming up. So you just want to make sure that you just basically continue to be transparent about things.
Yeah, and we do that anyway. Like we have each other's passcodes, we have each other's like social media, email, like. Yeah. But even though I have it, like I don't feel the need to be like, let me go see what's in TJ's DMs or let me go check his this or that. Like I have access to it, sure, but I don't need to use it. I don't have any reason or feel like I have a reason to. But it's just at least the like trust that I'm giving you my login information, and I don't feel like I have to hide it from you.
Right.
And something else I was gonna say when it comes to trust, and like once you've broken that person's trust, let's say, for example, someone cheated, and you decide you do want to stay together and rebuild the trust. People like feel like, well, they don't have to do certain things after that. Like if someone cheated, let's say TJ cheated, and
I ain't cheat.
you did it, but let's say he cheated, and
Black
we're
men don't
like,
cheat. That's what they say.
anyway. Let's say he cheated and we're like, we're still going to stay together and work through it, whatever, and this and that. And a text comes up on his phone, and then I'm like, well, who's texting you? And you're like, I don't need to be telling you whatever. Like, you do.
Red flag.
Because you broke the trust. Like,
Red
when you decided you're going to stay together and you're going to work on building your trust and rebuilding your relationship, like, those things, yeah, it might seem like I don't have to do this, like you should just trust me, but because you broke that trust, now you have to do those things until your partner feels comfortable again with you or feels like they can trust you again.
And make your life easier. Just don't cheat. I mean, it just adds so much added difficulties to a relationship altogether. Trying to rebuild that, like Jasmine said, taking a big bucket out of the trust bucket there. That just basically just empties it all the way out. I mean, all trust is gone, and trying to refill that bucket is going to be difficult. So just don't do it. If you feel like you need to cheat, just end the relationship and move on. That's my thought, at least.
Yeah. And then our last non-negotiable is in regard to love languages. So a lot of people don't know what those are. There's a book on it by Gary Chapman. I guess it's called The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah.
But it talks about like the ways people like to be loved. And there's 5 different languages that people like to be loved. So they like to be loved either by physical touch, by words of affirmation, by giving gifts, by spending quality time, or by acts of service. So physical touch, obviously, like they want to be.
Oh, that's me. That's me all day.
They want to be
touch
physically touched. Like they feel loved when you touch them, when you give them a hug or hold their hand or whatever. Those people like that type of love. People that like words of affirmation, like they want you to compliment them, essentially, like tell them you look nice today, or you did a good job with this, or I think you're an awesome mom, or whatever. They just want to be told compliments. Gift giving, that one is mine.
Yeah, I saw you.
And it sounds bad to say, like, I love gifts, but I do like gifts.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just about giving that person a gift. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I bought this person like Michael Kors this and Michael Kors that. Like, no. I'm just as happy with getting a Pepsi from the store. Like, that's a gift. That's a gift to me. Like, just bringing something back that reminded you, like, oh, I know she likes this or whatever. Like, I like getting gifts. And in turn, I like to give gifts to people. Quality time is self-explanatory. You're just spending time with your person. Usually it's like more undistracted. Without distraction. Like whether that's going out on a date somewhere or putting your phones down or watching a movie, whatever.
Yeah.
And then acts of service is like physically doing something for the person. Like if you know the person's a stay-at-home mom, you do laundry for them one day so they don't have to. Or like he mostly cooks for our family, so one time me cooking for the family instead so that he doesn't have to. Don't say anything.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Chef TJ in the kitchen.
Or just you're trying to, in a sense, make life easier for the other person by doing things for them.
Right.
That you know that they like. Maybe like, the person likes to drink coffee every morning, so you set out like their cup and the little coffee stuff that they need, so when they come down, it's ready for them to do.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything grand. Just real. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. And it goes a mile, basically. It goes miles.
And I think the biggest issue people have with love languages is like usually people in a marriage have different ones. Like TJ's is physical touch and mine is gift giving. And so the issue that people have, I think we do sometimes, but we've gotten better, is that I will try to love him in the way that I want to be loved, and he tries to love me in the way that he wants to be loved, rather than showing the person the love that they want. So like I will try to like, oh, I love getting gifts, so like let me buy him this and let me buy him that. Like, oh, I think this is nice, and he's like,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's nice,
I
thanks.
Just want you to touch me still.
Oh my god. It's like, yeah, that's great, but you know, like that's not how I want to be loved. And then vice versa. Like, so whatever your partner's love language is, I feel like you need to learn what it is and then practice loving that person that way. Like, don't try to love them the way you like to be loved when they don't like to be loved that way. That one especially is like, we've gotten better.
Yeah.
A little bit.
We're doing good.
I don't think we're that bad, but I know that was something that we have an issue with, and it's like, why don't you let me love you like this? And it's like, cause I don't want to be loved like that. So. Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, these are just some of our thoughts here in terms of things that we think you just have to have within a marriage in order to make it successful. So again, please leave any comments down below if you have anything to talk about from that standpoint, so we can keep the conversation going. But yeah, we'll see you on the next video. Peace.